It's called the Monday, March 21st, 2022 meeting of the Dalton City Council meeting to order. Mr. Mock will lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The agenda is before you. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Some.
Motion by Mr. Mock, second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Now's public commentary. Do we have any cards? Nope. Well, come on up and just tell me your name and address and all that. Come up. Yeah, you have to come up here and speak into the microphone. Yeah. Please tell us your name and address.
Kim Maples, Rosewood Circle, Dalton.
Okay.
So I live in the Dugout community. I actually live right behind the outlet mall on Market Street.
Right behind where?
The outlet mall
Yeah. Okay.
on Market
Yeah.
Street. And for about the last 6 weeks now, everyone in my community, not just my complex, but Shields Road, Mineral Springs Road, a lot of people have been being disturbed greatly at night. And it's taken me to now to find out where it's coming from. But it's coming from a nightclub that has been allowed to open in the outlet mall. It's called Mistika, Mistika. We literally are in their back door. I have lived there for 18 years and put up with the sound of dump trucks dumping dumpsters at 4 a.m. every Monday morning. And I've never said a word. I've lived in the city and paid taxes since 1977. But myself, along with countless others, can't even sleep. When I tell you that my windows in my condo vibrate from the music and the bass, I'm not exaggerating. I have called 911 till I'm tired of calling. What they do by their own admission is if they go at all, they pull up, they roll the window down, and it doesn't sound obnoxiously loud to them, and they leave. Well, what they're not doing is driving around to the rear of the outlet mall, which there's a road they can do, or coming to my neighborhood. One finally did that for me Saturday night, because I finally requested an officer come to my home and speak to me. And he said, ma'am, I'm going to tell you, we pull up there, and I'm not convinced. I'm sorry if you're a cop, but I'm not convinced as many times as myself and countless others have called that they're even responding every time. But I know by their own admission, they're driving up in front of the place of business, rolling the window down. Doesn't sound that loud to me, and hauling boogie. Come to my bedroom, come to my parking lot, which is what Officer Greer finally did Saturday night for me, and was astounded at the volume of the noise in my home. You can go to the What's Happening in Dalton, Georgia Facebook page and go to a post made by Betty Schuler Benton 5 days ago and see 24 comments about the same thing. You can go to the Mistika nightclub Facebook page and see their hours of operation are from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I can testify to the fact that they're playing this music and beating the bass till then and some. I had to call 3 times Saturday night, and then I got woke up and I was told then, we're going to go right after midnight. And if they're still playing this music, we're going to write them a ticket tonight. Well, why haven't you done that before now? The ordinance says midnight. First of all, they shouldn't have been allowed to open in our community. I don't care if they're on Market Street. They're in my back door. They're either leaving the door open. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm telling you, the acoustics is unreal in my neighborhood compared to the parking lot. But anyway, I was told, well, if they're still playing the music after midnight tonight, we're gonna write them a ticket this time. What about the 498 other times you've been called that you've not done anything? 1:20 Sunday morning, you can check the records. I'm having to call 911 again because the music is rattling my windows. So we gotta do something. I don't know what. I understand that's considered probably, I'm not stupid. I worked in the banking industry in this town for almost 45 years. I came dressed like a slouch, but I'm a business person. I'm not stupid. I know they're in a business district, but they were allowed to open in our back door. And something has to be done to stop it. They either need to put up a soundboard fence or close their back door. The police need to be more proactive. I should not have to be in my home, minding my own business, and have to call 911 one time for loud noise, but certainly not 3 and 4 and 5 times every Friday and Saturday night. That I should not have to spend my time doing that. And I feel like the city of Dalton has allowed this mess and they need to clean it up.
I appreciate that. I think the chief is right behind you there. He may want to speak to this too.
We actually responded Saturday night, shut them down, issued citations. They've got appearance in court. We've got another problem business down there we're monitoring, so we're down there frequently. So we're taking enforcement actions. It's being addressed. I'll look and see what kind of research we've got, or historical data. We got a number of calls down there, but this weekend it was addressed and they were shut down, and we'll continue to do it.
So why were they still playing at 1:20? Because if you check, I called again at 1:20 in the morning and
Ma'am,
they,
if you'll give me your information, I'll be happy to do research
Okay.
on it. I'll get back with you tomorrow.
I sure will.
But what I can tell you is they were shut down on Saturday night.
When
Sunday
you
morning,
say
I
shut
just don't know
down, do
what
you
time it
mean
was.
just for the night or shut down period?
Just for the evening, ma'am.
Say that's not gonna solve the problem.
But we will work on it. I'll look on it. So if you'll forward me your information. I'll
We'll
take
get
it.
aggressive with this and find out where, I haven't even heard of this place. So where is it?
It's next door to Edible Arrangements in the Outlet Mall, which if you were to research is literally, Mineral Springs Road. There's a reason it's called.
And I know about
Okay,
the, I
yes,
just wonder
sir.
where in the outlet mall you're talking about. That's the kind of-
Where in the Outlet
Yeah.
Mall, it's next to Edible Arrangements, so
What? Which side of where West Point Pepperell used to be, which side of it is it on?
well, which depends on which if you're facing the building,
Yeah.
it's going to be just to the right
Okay. I know what
of,
you're talking about.
of West Point Pepperell,
Okay.
which is literally, you can stand on my deck and see the old awning of West Point Pepperell Mill Store from my deck.
Okay.
It's probably, the creek is probably 15 feet from my deck. It's another 10 feet to their back door, maybe 15.
Yeah.
It's just way
We'll-
too close for comfort.
We'll get on it. It's the first time I've heard anything about this.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm the only one brave enough to come, but I can't live like this. I shouldn't have to live like this in my own home. So what will happen?
We're not holding anything against anybody. You're supposed to be enforcing the law, so don't worry about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, updates with you, but it's our understanding now that there's an appearance in court. Water those people.
Mhm.
Have the opportunity to business,
Okay, but my question is this, how and why are they allowed to be that close to that many residences making that kind of noise, period? Most of us are in bed way before midnight.
There is a sound ordinance, that we need to enforce, obviously, so.
But it's not being done.
Yeah, but that's what we're going to get on. This is the first time I've heard anything. about
I
that.
understand,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
Do you mind filling that part out?
I'll be happy to fill out anything I need to fill out to make this stop. I just had surgery not even a week ago. And I don't need to have to be dealing with this. I need to be able to rest in my home. Thank you.
The minutes are before you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? There a motion?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Goodley, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Farrer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Under unfinished business, number 2, the second reading of ordinance 22-03 to establish architectural design standards for the area within TAD number 5, otherwise known as the Gateway Corridor, as an overlay to existing zoning and land use regulations to incorporate findings of fact, to specify standards, including use of outdoor signage, to establish an effective date, to repeal laws and ordinance in conflict therewith, to provide for severability and for other purposes. Can you talk that fast, Ethan?
I think essentially, Mr. Mayor, the only changes we had to make were in regard to the sign language. We made sure that we took out any reference to commercial signs or different types of signs that would indicate content regulations. So we made sure to remove that. And of course, we made the change that medical inpatient facilities would not be permitted rather than signaling out the single use there. So those were really the only changes that we needed to make from the last version that you all saw. And I think that version had been sent out. So if anybody has any questions in greater detail, I'm happy to answer.
We received no public comment from our first reading.
Any other questions? There a motion on this? Motion by Mr. Mock, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 3, under new business, creation of design review board for the Gateway Corridor Overlay District regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is directly related to ordinance 22-03 that was just adopted. The ordinance contemplates a design review board appointed by the mayor and council for reviewing projects and their conformity with the overlay district regulations. In addition, the group that prepared the ordinance felt like it was important for this design review board also to have authority over issuing variances, very similar to how the Board of Zoning Appeals works. And so for your consideration tonight, the proposed makeup of the board would be the current city administrator or his or her designee, the planning and zoning administrator, which is currently Gene Garland, the chief building official, which is currently Michael Fowler, and then a local area architect or engineer. And at this time, Kenneth Harless has agreed to serve on that design review board.
So what you need is a motion creating this board.
That's correct, and to appoint those 4 positions.
Can we do it? Motion by Mr. Mock, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Farrell. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 4, acceptance of permanent easement agreement from Bruce A. King for Mill Creek Riverwalk project. Is that you, Andrew?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back in March of 2019, the city council accepted easements from the King family as well as Miss Beavers and her family for the construction of the Mill Creek Greenway. That's the trail connection proposed from Hag Mill down to the Boy Scout trailhead on Chattanooga Avenue. Over the course of the last few months, American Consulting has had that project under design, and they've determined a need to adjust those easements because they were made preemptively, and now that the design is in progress, by adjusting the easement limits, it will minimize construction costs associated with tying the slopes into the trail and not having to build large retaining walls. So both the Mashburn Foundation and Mr. King have provided their permission to adjust those easements in accordance with the drawings that are reflected in the mayor and council meeting packet. And so these next two items are related. So I described them at the same time.
Any questions, Andrew? Your motion? Motion by Mr. Mock. Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 5, that's related to that too. So you just need another.
That's right.
Their motion on number 5. Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodlet. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Under number 6, Croy Engineering revised task order number 6 for ramp rehab at airport.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this was already approved back in February with the understanding that the design on this project would be paid for by a federal grant 100% with no local match. We have since got an updated understanding from GDOT that if the 100% funds are used up by the project itself, the engineering will be covered by a 90% grant. So it'll fall to a secondary grant, which would require a 10% local match of about 15,000. Let me get to that point. Yes, 718, 15,718. So we don't yet know until that project is paid for. We received a $1.4 million federal discretionary grant to cover this project, but it may or may not cover the engineering funds. So Just wanted to get it on the record for reapproval with that local match possibility. Correct. That would be the maximum. It's not in our budget. No, it would have to be out of the general fund.
Questions? There a motion? Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Update to federal state airport CIP request for allocation of incoming bipartisan infrastructure law funds.
So the bipartisan infrastructure law has allocated $295,000 for the Dalton Airport each year for the next 5 years. In order to receive those funds, we had to update our CIP, our federal and state CIP, to allocate projects toward those monies. So this is just an update. Normally, we do this once a year. We just approved this back in November. So it's essentially, it's all the same projects. They're just apportioned to different buckets. So this just requires a signature by the mayor. This does not mean that we have to do these projects. Basically, the 295 for this year, we're going to put towards the obstruction removal phase 1, which will be to remove obstructions that are on some properties we're acquiring this year. Once we get to that point, I'll bring that project before this body for approval, which will have a local match of $16,389.
Right now, you're not asking for anything.
That's correct.
Okay. There a motion on this? Motion by Mr. Mock, second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Number 8, intergovernmental agreement between the city of Dalton and Woodfield County regarding jointly funded services special tax district.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is to follow up on the action the County Board of Commissioners took at their meeting this past Monday with the city of Dalton to remove the library from the jointly funded special tax district, jointly funded services special tax district, which includes the library, the JDA, and the senior center. Removal of the library from the special tax district will provide more flexibility to fund various programs and enhance services at the library.
The first thing is the county's going to go from 255 to 510 in their
That's
funding for the
correct.
library.
That's
Increase
correct.
$255,000. Any other questions? Your motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fair, is there a second? Second, by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. This is the first reading on ordinance 22-05 to make findings of fact concerning the public use and necessity of an unopened section of Morningside Drive as shown in the plat of Fraser Acres, to consider vacating and abandonment of the public interest and to said section of platted and unopened street for public street and transportation purposes, to declare the closing of such section of platted but unopened street for public use and transportation, to authorize delivery of a quitclaim deed of any interest of the city of Dalton, reserving all utility easements to adjacent property owners, to establish an effective date and for other purposes. This you, Andrew?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a first reading, so no action is needed tonight, but we received a petition from BMT Circle. Let me make sure I get this right. LLC, BMT Circle LLC, to close the unopened portion of a 50-foot right-of-way that was platted on the original Fraser Acres Phase 3 subdivision plat from 1949. The city never purchased this right-of-way. It was just shown on a plat of record. And BMT Circle has petitioned the city to close the section of Morningside Drive. It's reflected on that plat on pages 71 and 78 of your packet. You'll see a strip of Morningside Drive highlighted north of Alabama Drive's cul-de-sac to Halbowen Drive. The departments have reviewed this. The only comment that we really received from anybody of any material was from Dalton Utilities, who requested to retain a permanent utility easement on the utility infrastructure that was located in that 50-foot strip of right-of-way that would be abandoned. And I will note that this was not a joint petition. The neighboring property owner did have some concerns about closure of the unopened strip, but I explained to the resident that the city has no plans to ever connect that roadway, because initially this was platted before Veterans Drive was ever constructed. So Veterans Drive serves the purpose of what Morningside Drive was proposed on that plat. So when I explained that to her, she said that she would be receptive to it as long as she receives half of the 50 feet, which is the customary practice to deed half to one property owner, or quit claim, excuse me, Mr. Miller, quit claim half to one property, adjacent property owner, and half to the other. So again, no action is required tonight, but I think the petitioner is here if you have any questions.
Questions? Cool. Number 10 is first reading of ordinance 22-06, an ordinance of the city of Dalton to amend chapter 22 captioned buildings and building regulations, providing for delegation of powers and authority for the administration and enforcement of the provisions of chapter 22 and the powers of building inspector under section 5-23 of the charter, 1908, 579, section 8, and sections 22-501 and of the revised code of 2001 is amended to establish an effective date to provide for severance, to repeal conflicting local laws, and for other purposes. Is that you too?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is another first reading, so no actions required tonight. This is to support an operational change within the city to relocate the code enforcement inspectors under the purview of the city administrator's office. Currently, our city code does not contemplate that. It provides authority for the enforcement of codes to the chief building official or the police chief or his or her designee. And what this amendment will do is provide that authority to the city administrator or his or her designee to enforce all the international building code, as well as property maintenance code, as well as non-criminal violations that are contemplated in the city ordinance that are referenced in the general penalty section of section 1.7. So beginning in April, after the council adopts this, the code enforcement authority would fall under the city administrator's office. We decided in talking with the city attorney that it would also be prudent to go ahead and provide this authority to the fire chief and his or her designee as well, because they are already writing fire code violations. So it will clean that up in the process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Miller if he had anything else to add.
Police department still retains the ability to cite and assist any way that they see fit, or coordinating through the administrator's office. But the coordination point will be a code enforcement inspector. I think that's the title of the officer you're going to be bringing on board, correct?
Correct.
That require a new position?
I'm working with the police chief to transfer the existing positions over at the police department. Those existing code enforcement officers go back into patrol to fill or other functions of the department that are unstaffed at this time. And so there will be no budget increase to the city as a result of moving these positions to city admin.
Sounds like we'll have more boots on the ground then.
That's right. And also, one thing I didn't mention is it will provide a code enforcement inspector for the clerk's office as well to address issues with OTC compliance, occupational tax compliance, as well as other alcohol beverage non-compliance issues. Anything that would be deemed non-criminal. If it gets to be criminal, it would always be a police officer handling those.
Any questions? We'll take action on the first meeting in April. There'll be no supplemental business. I'll entertain them. Yep. Why don't you do that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Chief Pringle, you mind to come forward and just share about the call on, is it Chestnut Street? I was asking Chief Pringle about the call.
I'm sorry.
About the fire.
Yeah, so we, as I updated, the PSC this morning, we did have a incident last night on Chestnut Street where we had reports of heavy smoke showing from a residence. Upon our arrival, that is what we found. We had one city resident that was rescued from the home. And when we pulled him out, he was not breathing. Our units, our personnel was able to perform CPR and regain a pulse. He was then transported to Hamilton Medical Center, where from there he was life flighted to a burn center. in South Georgia. So haven't heard an update on him of yet, but I will say our personnel did an outstanding job for what they faced when they arrived and what they were able to do. The homeowner was somewhat of a hoarder, so we actually couldn't access him from any windows. So guys did a great job, and I just take the opportunity to commend our staff. Their professionalism and training really showed last night.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Your motion, we adjourn? We adjourn.